Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Patricia Jabbeh.
And I am Priscilla Chenemambela. Good morning from my end, everyone. This is Focus on Liberia with a noonday. Welcome to a noonday broadcast where we delve into transformative dialogues about social justice and the voices leading the charge for social reforms. Yeah, at a noonday, we explore the intersections of politics, culture, and tradition with the leaders who are reshaping our world for the better. A new day focuses on critical dialogues around social justice with emphasis on gender justice to influence policies and contribute to societal shifts. So we facilitate these kind of conversations that challenge our worldviews and lead to the evolution of a new consciousness of ourselves, our relations to each other, and the world in which we all live. Today on a new day, our guest is Dr. Patricia Jabbeh Wesley. She is a poet, memoirist, fiction writer, and anti-war human rights activist who immigrated to the United States during the Liberian Civil War. She's the author of 6 critically acclaimed books of poetry, including Praise Song for My Children, New and Selected Poems, When the Wanderers Come Home, and The River is Rising. Dr. Jabbeh Wesley has also published dozens of individual poems, memoir articles, and short stories in literary magazines and anthologies, including in Harvard Review, Transition, Prairie Schooner, the New York Times Magazine, and her poetry has been translated into several languages around the world. In 2023, she edited and published the most comprehensive collection of Liberian poetry, Breaking the Silence, anthology of Liberian poetry with University of Nebraska Press, and that book was named a top notable 100 book in African literature by British Paper. Her work has been translated into several languages, including Hebrew, Spanish, Dutch, Italian, among others. Some of her awards include a 2022 Theodore Rothskin Memorial Poetry Prize for her sixth book, Praise Song for My Children, New and Selected Poems, the 2022 Levinson Prize from Poetry Foundation for her poems Healing Will Come, and Black Woman Selling Her Home in America, a 2021 Edward Stanley Poetry Prize from Prairie Schooner magazine for her poems My Name is Dawanyana and When My Husband Prays, and a 2002 Crab Arching Award for her second book, Becoming Ebony. In 2024, Dr. Patricia Jabbeh Wesley was commissioned to write and read her poem, Liberia, Home of Our Mothers' Mothers, at the inauguration of President Joseph N. Boyka, the 26th President of Liberia, on January 22, 2024. The first poet ever in Liberia's 178 years. Her latest book of poems, a 500-page collection entitled Patricia Jabbeh Wesley Collected Poems 1998 to 2020, is forthcoming from the University of Nebraska Press in the spring of 2026. Dr. Wesley is the mother of 4 grown children. She is married to Dr. Mentor Wesley. She is a professor of English, creative writing, and African literature at Penn State University's Atona College. I am so delighted and besides myself to have Dr. Wesley joining us today on a new day. Good morning, Dr. Wesley, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Priscilla. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. I don't want to go all into that, but you know who you are to some of us in the Liberia diaspora and even at home and around the world. Um, I've listened to so many of your interviews, especially talking about children that you have all around the world that you dedicated your book, Praise Song for My Children. So you are someone that most of us look up to globally, um, at from home, from the home from, and then globally. So I'm so excited to have you and looking forward to a really educative conversation with you. And we're also live on the radio in Liberia, here FM 95.9, live in Liberia. And we have in studio with us George Guer. But Josh is going to be at the anchor, not saying much, not saying maybe anything at all. But just so you know, he's here with us, and we appreciate your presence, George. Thank you for broadcasting us on the home front in Liberia. So for our discussion today, I'm going to just share a few points so that we can begin with, and then we'll ask Dr. Wesley to please open us with a few of our points. But yeah, so for some of the points we have, we'll be discussing her early life and her literary roots, how her upbringing in Liberia influenced her voice as a writer, her journey from survivor of Civil War to internationally acclaimed poet and professor, and the role of poetry in narrating the Liberian Civil Wars in exile and giving voice to the voiceless, especially women, children, and the displaced. So, Dr. Wesley, do you want to begin by with a few of your poems, especially that I mentioned that your work give voice to the voiceless, especially women, children, and the displaced.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure for me to be here. And I'm very humbled. I'm very humbled to continue to be what God has given me the opportunity to be. I'm very humble. I am not, I'm proud of what I've done, but I am humbled. I'm humbled that a little girl like me, when I was growing up, who grew up in a step home, I was a stepchild. I had a beloved father, but I was a stepchild. And we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But I am humble that God has brought me this far into a very different country, different town. And I'm sitting in a house where I have written and published 4 books, 5 books now, or 6 books in this house, in this one house, while living in a small white town with no other Liberians living here. 50,000 people, no Liberian family, almost very few Africans. God has humbled me. That's what I would start with. And I would read, I always like to open with this poem because it says who I am. My name is Dawa Nyina. My name is Dawa Nyina. My crew neighbors used to call me, they never call me Patricia. Dawa Nyina. Dawa Nyina. Now fuede. I had to learn how to say, now for no son, Nani day. So they understood what it meant to be Dawanyina. And this poem became important because in our culture, they name children, and when they name you, you end up being what the name prophesied. So ironically, that is what it is. Priscilla, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you the, but I
Okay,
can
go
stay.
ahead. You can do whatever. I don't want to lose you. You know I love you.
I'm here.
My name is Dawanyina. I am the stranger woman bearing hot coals in my palms. The woman born Dawanyina, Nyemade, Himianyine. But the old women in the birthing chamber named Dawanyina, stranger woman, a woman not of this world, an alien coming into a new town where the Grebo language bends differently, where they do not roll their tongue the same way to say Nyemade. My mother's people renamed the woman from Bolobo, Dawanyina, that stranger, the other, that alien. Even in the villages of Liberia, people know how to discriminate the stranger woman from the townswoman. I said being born in Doloken instead of Tubaken, my father's town, wasn't alienating enough. I was born with a burning flame in my heart and in my hands and on my tongue. I do not know ice or cold and cannot know what chill feels like on skin and tongue, nor the way you put fire out. I am fire maker, the bearer of flames. I fill up spaces with the burning stores of my people, the forsaken, the black charcoal skin of my people, the African. We who have seen our lands and our sons snatched from us since the beginning of time. We will have seen our own sons appointed to chop off our heads and our hands and our umbilical cords and our limbs and our homelands. I come with flames shooting from my nostrils. I burn and I scorch things. I was not supposed to be woman, not supposed to sit and wait or bend so men can walk upon my bare back. Not supposed to be the canal where children flow from my body like a stream, as if this was all I was made to do. I was not supposed to be what they thought I was supposed to be. As a child, my father tried turning me into a son, into a lion, into fire, into a body of water flowing with fire, into the ocean just beyond the hills from our home, to fill the many spaces his sisters never filled, into a goddess, a fiery flame in her hand to burn and burn and burn. He tried to create a man out of the rubble of my being, out of my womanness. But then here I am, fire, fire. And I became me, Dawanyina, daughter of the lion, daughter of burning flames, terror of all things, daughter of woman wet from toil, daughter of two towns whose grapes sound the same, but not really the same, Dawanyina, without a town, born in alien country, aging in alien country. I was supposed to be a man, they said, but I declined the offer. Somebody, somebody has a phone or something on that is causing. I hope it's not my phone. I don't think so. Let me. So, Priscilla, if you have something on, it needs to.
No, I don't. No,
Okay. So, do you want me to read something else?
please. if you
Okay.
can.
I will keep my big feminist poem off until the end.
All right.
Well,
But
I have a poem here. I
okay.
wrote, it's coming. I have another book. I have two books, but I decided to publish the collection of all of my poems. It's actually 514 pages now. They send me the number of pages. So now I know it's 514 pages. And this other book, they said they couldn't publish it. It's called Stranger Woman. That's where that one, is. And it's the poems written since 2020. So they said you can't have two babies in the same year if they are not twins. So they have to keep that one for another year.
Okay.
So this is where this poem is. But this poem has been published in magazines. And it's called I come from a country that eats its young. I come from a country that eats its young. I'm dedicating this poem to my nephew who was found dead and decomposed in Newtown area this morning. As I was getting ready, I got a call from my sister and I started weeping. I started weeping because now we have a country in which somebody would be dead in a house and nobody will know for days until they decompose. This is a young man. We grieve for our young children. I come from a country that eats its young. Like a dog swallows its newborn down its copra belly. The calling of forest ropes around our young trees. The belly of the ugly politician that smells of rotten bodies, carcasses of our war dead. The blood money of rotten people with short eyesight. I come from the land that is slowly wasted at the ankles of sandy beaches. The beauty endowed us by nature, foaming with anger, our birthright traded in sex parlors to rotten concubines. One day, God came down and found a nation asleep on its hands, a nation that sings of old age as if age were a virtue of itself. As if aging without anything to show when you open your palms were alone capable of redeeming our filthy greed. I come from a country of tears, of hurt, of old scars busting, of unborn brains sapped in the halls of corruption. I come from there, the sand and the blue skies, the gifts God gave us all a waste. I come walking amidst termites, feasting on our carcasses. I come from a sea of tears, and I am mad. After 30 years since the war began, I sit on the mat again to grieve a new grief. But I have run out of tears to weep for my country.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Auntie, Dr. Wesley, for the loss of your nephew. My condolence to you, to the mother of your nephew, and to your family for such loss. Yeah, it's strange because the Liberia I remember, people are in and out of other people's home. It's over here that and I always told people now my story is going to change. Like it's here that people die alone. Like people die in a house and then it takes 4 days before the police go and break in. But where I come from, we look out for each other. But then to hear this kind of sad thing, my condolence to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I love that poem. My name is Dawa, by the way. And thank you for sharing that you like to begin with it because it better introduces you or it gave a little more context about who you are and where you come from. Because I've listened to several of your interviews, I watched them, including the one done on PBS and various universities and readings, and you begin with that. So but I just understood now why you like to begin with that, and I think that's a great reason. So thank you for sharing that. It made me love the poem more. My name is Dawa, you know.
Yes, her name was Himianyene. She came from Borobo. In Borobo, they speak differently. Dennis will know that. We are from Kalwe, and in Borobo, they speak differently. And so they don't say Awia, Momjea, and they say Nawia. They say they're close to the sea coast Grebo, that's Plivo area. So she was married to somebody in my mother's hometown, and it looked like when the women wanted to send to her house for something, instead of saying go to Himianyene, go to saying Himianyene, or and her other name was Nyemane, and they would say go to that
That
street,
one,
go to Dawa, that woman who doesn't belong. So
yeah,
that woman.
stranger.
And so they started calling, she got tired. So they started calling her Dawa. So the children named after her, they just decided, okay, the name would be Dawa, now. So it took me a long time. I was probably 7 or 8 before I knew my real name was Nyemande Himianyene, but I've never carried it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good segue into our first question, which is, can you begin by sharing a little bit about your earliest memories of? Okay, so this is really your about your earliest memories of writing in Liberia. What drew you to poetry?
Okay. So I started as I think I was always a storyteller.
Hmm.
I was always a storyteller. But when you're a child, you don't know you're a storyteller. And here's the thing that happens in Liberia. When Liberian people have a child who is smart, and anywhere when a child is very intelligent, the child gets bored easily. The child gets bored. That's a sign that the child is intelligent, is way ahead of others. Okay. And then when a child is a storyteller, a lot of times, or a gifted speaker, the child is talkative. It's always spinning stories. So I remember spending less than 3 years in my home village in boarding school among my family. My father sent us to Tubake, the same place he and my mother met, the same place he went to school. He started school in our hometown. And 4 of us siblings were sent there like to boot camp or something. When I was 11, in those days, in the six, I was 66, and people sent their children to boarding school, they call them, and to go on a mission or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And so they banished us to tobacco. It was very traumatizing, because for all those almost 3 years, I couldn't see my mom, I couldn't see my dad, but I didn't know. But in tobacco, my grandfather Jabbeh, and it was Doju Jabbeh, okay, and he was a father of so many grandchildren and several children, all men and women. So I was under the charge of my uncle Jacob Tuba Jabe. Tuba, we started Tuba. So we have Tuba and Tuba Day in our family. So my uncle was Tuba. He was the eldest child of my grandfather. I was staying with him, and something will happen on the road. Something will happen, and all the kids will come. We'll all come, my cousins and me, and everybody will tell their story. Oh, he fell down fell by the river. Oh, the bucket dropped when we went for water. Oh, we saw a snake on the road. Really, you saw a snake on the road? And then I would tell the story differently. I would talk about how when we're going, and then we're walking like this, and people were twisting and turning, and the birds were in the trees, and this and that. And then as we're going, we're walking slow, and the grass were all wet, and then we saw the snake, and the snake were going like this. And my cousins would say, "That loud."
Because they didn't pick all of those details.
That loud. She can talk too much. And then my grandfather would be clapping, He would be clapping. He would say, "Go on, go on."
Wow, that was
And
nice.
so when something happened, he would say, yo, wait, let her come tell the story. And then I would, and he would be entertained, you know, he would be clapping and he would say, go on, you know. And so that was the first sign, now looking back, that I knew I was, and he knew I was a storyteller. So he used to say, you will write books. One day he blessed me and he said, you will write books. You will know books. That would be your own. But it was not surprising. My father was the first educator in the family. And he was the one that got everything, high school, college, everything. So it was obvious that maybe I would be, but my cousins used to laugh and say that they want to write books, you know. People used to. So anyway, then I went to back to Monrovia, and I was around 13. And then I started writing. I would buy a notebook and I would write stories. I would write, and then my father always had a ream of paper, and I would write stories and stories. My father started throwing books at me because he knew I liked to read. And so he gave me a big book called England in Literature. And so I started reading English poetry, and I loved it. And so I fell in love with poetry. I would read poetry. I would read the Psalms. And so one day my father was at work. He worked at USAID, you know, starship clothes and everything, dress up man. So one day he came from work. I set his table. I used to love to take out his shoes, because when I took out his shoe, he would pay me 25 cents. So after I took out his shoes, while he was at work one week, I copied so many British poems by John Donne, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, part of Shakespeare's plays at the poetry part. I made a book of poems, about probably 10 poems, and then I decorated it, you know, pencil, and then I wrote there poems by Patricia Jabbeh, dedicated to her father, Moses Jabbeh. So I had a book. That was my first book. I was like, I was 13 going on 14. So when my father got through eating, when he was eating, I said, I wrote a book. I wrote a book of poems. So he said, you wrote a book of poems? I said, yeah, I'm a poet now. I said, I want to be a poet. I'm like almost 14. Then he said, really? You want to be a poet? You've been reading that big book? I said, yeah. He said, you know you can be a poet. I said, I did. I wrote a book. So then he said, okay. When he was eating, then he said, you want to read a book to me? So I read the title, dedicated to Moses Jabbeh, her father. Then I opened the first poem. I read it. I read the second poem. While reading the second poem, he said, hold on. So I said, what happened, Pa? He said, you wrote that poem? The other poem you just read, you wrote it? I said, yes. He said, I will ask you one more time. Did you write that poem? I said, yes. He said, you want me to beat you now? Y'all bring my bell. I come and beat the guy for lying. You wrote that poem. That poem didn't sound like, it sounded the poems that I read when I was in school. These are British poets, right? So I said, but I wrote it, Pa. I took it and I used my own hand and I wrote it. He said, you think you're smart? And then so, you think you're smart? He said, get in the corner, you little skinny, dry bunny. My father was tough. He said, get in that corner. And he threw a paper at me with a book. He said, you got 5-10 minutes to write a poem. If you write a poem, I will beat you. He said, you do not steal poems that you didn't write. You are better than British poets. Yeah. I sat in the corner and wrote my first poem. Because I had to read that poem or I was going to get whipping. So I wrote the poem. He said, you ready? I said, yeah. I read the poem. My father started clapping. He said, you can write. You can write a better poem. You can be a writer. So from now on, you write a poem from your head. You write a poem about everything around you. So I started writing poems. Then I started writing short stories. And then my hands were getting tired. When my father would call me, I would get up 2 o'clock in the morning and write. I had bundles of short stories and poems. So one day he saw them and he said, oh, my child, your hands must be tired. He said, okay, we're going to solve the problem. Next time he came from work, he brought a brand new typewriter in a box. And he brought a Greg Tapping book, self-teaching book. And he said, Kanye woman. He said, and you want to be writer? I said, yeah. He said, you see this thing? You're going to practice. So he got on it, ASDF. He said, there's page by page. within a month you can know how to type. You're going to teach yourself typing. I say, I can't do it. He said, you can do it. So he said, in 1 month, I will test you. In 1 month, he called me to do my typing test. By the time I got to it, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and I was doing sentences and paragraphs. I could type, but I had not done numbers. So I said, Pa, I can't do numbers here. I haven't got the numbers. He said, you wanted to be a writer. You don't want to be a mathematician. I said, yes. He said, okay, you can write. So that's how I started typing up my own stories. By the time I went to high school, I was writing short stories. If anybody went to CWA between 1973 and 76, they would know that I used to publish my stories and my poems in the Fox's curtain. Everybody was beautiful girl, most beautiful girl, best dressed girl, best outgoing girl, most loved girl. I was the best poet, best student writer. That's all they could name me for. So that's how I started writing, and I've never stopped writing since that time.
Oh my God.
So, and my father has always been my fan. So he would find my poems. He would be all excited. One time I wrote a poem called Discipline, and it was about him, criticizing him and how he disciplined the creaking beds and the famaka beds and creaking chairs, the pots and pans and children too. He said, "You ready about me? You want to?" So, but he was always my fan. If I did anything wrong, if I didn't cook the food right, I would be cooking. I would boil the food. I would be writing poetry. My stepmom would be screaming the roof off, wanting my father to spank me. And my father, and I would say, I was writing a poem. And he would say, where is it? I would give it him. Then he would say to my stepmom, who was saying educated, you know she was writing a poem. You know she was writing a poem. She was writing a poem. so that's how he was my biggest fan, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how I started writing. And I never stopped.
What an amazing, amazing story. Thank you. Whew. Oh my God. I need to process that. That's amazing. Your father was such a great influence in
Yeah,
your.
he was my grandfather first and then my father.
I know all men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother, I think my mother was the storyteller. I think she was the storyteller.
Yeah.
I think I got it from her because when she was visiting us in the States in the 94, I would read on the radio in Grand Rapids and she would record it. She would press the button to record my reading. She would listen. The kids said she would be clapping while I'm on the radio. And then the whole week she would be replaying the tape and she would be, yeah, you know. And she was the storyteller. She used to tell stories to me, and a lot of stories I got, and the Grable songs and stories. Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
she was the one with our talent, you know. And I had a son who is the artist. Yeah.
So you have a balance of that.
Yeah.
You got your griot ability and skills and spirit and energy from your mother.
And my father. Yeah.
Then your father nurture what you got from nature.
Yeah.
Your grandfather as well. Your grandfather identified first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that answers my second question about how your upbringing, your father influence shape your creative voice. So let's move on to your writing through the war and displacement. Um, your work often addresses war, displacement, and exile. So, how do you approach the task of remembering and documenting trauma through poetry?
Well, one of the things that I came to learn early was that I was a storyteller. So I was always telling stories. But then I realized that I also could write poetry. So in between, I was juggling the both, writing poetry and writing stories. And then during the war, so I had a whole bunch of poetry. I have poems that I wrote in the 80s poems I wrote in the 70s, I taught them, many of them, because they could be faked now, but usually when you start writing the poetry, it's not as good. Even the short story is, the stories you write are not as good until you really know how to write. So, but the poems I wrote in the 80s were very good. But I wasn't focusing on writing stories. So I had poems. So I was writing stories. And then, so I have a whole bunch of stories I haven't published. I had a story called The Policeman and the Driver, capturing a scene where the policeman is pull over, well, bus full of us, and so I have a lot of stories. And now I'm putting together a collection of fiction and a collection of short memoirs at the same time. That's why I'm working on this summer. But then in the war, I noticed something. I noticed that it's very difficult to write short stories on the run. Because when you write fiction, you have to, first of all, you have to draft your synopsis. You have to say what the story is about. Then you have to draft the summary of the story and how many characters you will have, who will do this, who will do that, what the plot will be. You have to organize everything, maybe 2 or 3 pages of organization of the story. Whether it's a short story or if it's a novel, you have to have the idea framed up. So the other thing you have to do is you have to have a schedule. You have to write on schedule. You can't say, I will write a story when I feel like it. You can do it with a poem. And so you can write a whole story in 2 stanzas in poetry. Because poetry has the power to condense a whole scene into short lines. Okay. So we will be running and somebody will come in bombed. There will be massacre that we've heard of. I couldn't sit down to write everything out because I read a memoir too. So with poetry, I could condense the story into 2, 3 stanzas without losing time, because the next moment we will be probably running. So I had to write on the run. That's when I turned to poetry. The other reason I turned to poetry mostly is because in poetry, you can use literary devices to disguise the pain. So in prose, if you're writing about a man that was killed, you and found dead and decomposed, you have to give the details of the brutality, the blood, and all of the. You have to do it slowly and in details in order to capture this story. In poetry, you can bury the details in metaphors and similes and personifications and literary devices and imagery and achieve the same purpose. So, for example, when we're reading the poem and I say, from the beginning of time, our sons and our lands have been snatched, and I'm talking about colonialism. I'm talking about slavery in those lines. Our sons were snatched and our homelands, and then our own sons appointed to slash off our heads and our hands and our lands and our umbilical cords. Those are images and buried in symbolism. You can do that with poetry. You cannot easily do it with prose. You need hundreds and hundreds of pages to tell the same story. So that's how I started writing poetry. So I was writing poems. I mean, that's when I started focusing more on poetry. And in the war, when I was in the war for less than 2 years and we're on the run, I was writing. I remember one day there was a bombing near our camp, and people ran to our building with the dust of the building that had exploded on them, over them. And I was so hurt. I was in pain. I just went in the corner of our little building and hid in the corner and started writing a poem while the refugees were screaming and running here and there. And one guy in our building said, "What are you doing, Mrs. Wesley?" And I'm writing a poem. And "You writing a poem? You writing a poem? People are dying. You writing a poem? The woman crazy." And so that's how I decided to spend more time writing poetry. And when we immigrated, the stories were so traumatizing. We were not there. So they would kill whole families in a building in Sincar. They would bomb a whole place and I would write a poem. And the poems were also healing. And they were a way of bringing out the pain and weeping for my people. But it also gave me an opportunity to record the lives and the stories of my people that the world did not want to pay attention to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. You're writing a poem. What people Oh wow. It's like you were driven by something beyond yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, really a calling is something that you respond to beyond the physical.
Yeah.
So you were able to capture the stories of that's why your bio says you give voice to the voiceless. Because for me, I usually would be like I I started going along with one of my mentors saying that there is no voice, like there are just people who are being silent, so we amplify the voice. But as I read about you and listen to the work you do, and then I realize, yeah, she gives voice to the voiceless. There are voiceless,
There
but
are voiceless people. There
that
are voiceless. When you
that
have been silenced for so long, when people have been silenced for so long, they lose their voice. They may be talking, but that's not their voice. They may be talking, they may be shouting, but they are not, it is not them. They've been conditioned to not talk about themselves or for themselves.
and then there is one
And they are voiceless who have died,
that's
who have
where
been killed. They are also voiceless, but they are voiceless people who are alive. Who are alive? Women especially. Those, not just women, but men who have been taken advantage of, who have been conditioned not to speak for themselves. They
that's
are
it.
voiceless.
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's why in your poems we meet mothers, we meet survivors, we meet refugees, each one telling a story. And so you try to balance your personal pain with the collective grief of the nation by amplifying the stories of these voiceless people and also people who were killed and people who can't tell their stories anymore.
Yeah. And people who are alive who cannot tell their stories. If you went to Morovia today and you found people who were tortured in the war and you ask them to talk about themselves, you will be surprised how little amount of people will want to talk because they are afraid. They are unable to talk because they've been silenced by fear, the fear of the power that be, the fear of being stigmatized, the fear of being rejected by their people. Our people have a culture of silencing voices. This is how they do it when you're a child. They say you talk too much. Shut up.
Yeah.
That's what they say. They say shut up. And they sometimes said a woman should not be talkative. A woman should not behave like that. Who says so? Who says so? My father used to say, if a man can talk like that, you can talk like that. You can walk like a man if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. the conditioning of girls, of women, and in silence begins from childhood. As little girls, you can talk. Yeah, the conditioning begins from childhood.
And then they tell the boy to explain the story,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And they don't know they're doing it. Many times they don't know they're doing it, and they use Winnie, and Winnie use Winnie to do it,
yeah.
you know.
My poor brother suffer in my him for that. Um, as I listen to it, it's just interesting that we, to some extent, I have similar experiences that you've had, like telling stories like that. For me, the children used to gather around me at our house, and I tell stories, and I know my father and my mother will be in the same thing. So my father is not around, and my mother will be like, "You're not even able to pick rice." Because our people used to like that thing where the pusawa, they say pick
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
stuff. You're not even able to pick rice because when people talking, then your past say you were reading or you were studying because my own portion of the rice uh will not get it done because I in books. And then when she complained to my father would be like, "Oh, Zeli was doing she was reading." So she would throw that in my face. You can't even boy people in our language. Yeah, she can't even boy people. Or be her pa will say she learning book.
Yeah, because the values that were instilled in her, that's why she's
Yeah.
emphasizing.
And my mother like that thing about the same thing that you just talked about your brother. They will let a man. So she would be like, my brother was the man. No do no do he's your man. Let a man speak or let a man do this. Oh my god, I used to beat my brother because of that. Because I never used to understand why he should be the one to I was older than him, but then
Yeah,
he's the man. So she never understood. She would always say, "Why do you hate your brother? Why you let her beat him?" So, but that it just used to anchor me every time she said he's supposed to have or he has the power or authority over me. But I never understood where that anger would come from. But it just used to inflame me. I think I had that resistance, but no, men are all supposed to be equal. Men should not be above me. All right. So let's go to your literary impact in anthologies. You have published multiple collections, and recently you edited Breaking the Silence, a groundbreaking anthology. What was the vision behind that project?
well, I grew up in a country where we are always happy with small things, small achievements. I always tell the students I mentor that they must aspire to bigger dreams, bigger things. In our country, somebody will self-publish a little piece of pamphlet, a little piece of book, and they will go around talking about how great they are. You understand me? And everybody will start, people who will never read the book, I've never seen what a book looks like, will be bluffing and talking about this person being a writer. And that person in my presence will not allow me to work with them because they're already big. And that culture must be stopped. So I grew up in a country like some of you who already grew up in a country before the war, where we had a literature that wasn't ours. We have writers struggling to publish their books and be known. We have writers that we studied. We have Betty Moore. We have Henry Carter. We have Wilton Sankawulo. We had writers we have read about whose work we read. There's no publishing house in Monrovia, in Liberia, that really publishes like publishers. A real publishing house is a publishing house that takes in material and evaluates that material, whether it is good enough for the public or bad, grammatically and according to the expertise of literature. There is supposed to be good stories. There have to be stories that are read around the world. So then our publisher begins the process of editing and seeing whether each story can stand. And that means grammar, that means stylistically, that means according to the teachings of what literature what a short story should contain and how it should be put together. All of those things the publisher will say, we're not publishing this book, or we publish it. You don't pay the publisher. You don't pay a good publisher. You let the publisher accepts the material to spend their own money and publish it. Then the publisher promotes the book. The publisher gives you a contract. I have so many contracts. What money they will pay you? Called royalty. Royalty comes from profit. It doesn't come from the total sale. They have to take out the profit. So they have to know that you will sell the book. The book you are good enough for your book to sell. I always joke about, and I always tell people, I have never suffered to get a poetry book publisher. In fact, my books get solicited before they are ready. Publishers say, do you have another book of poetry? We want it. And that's how I've been publishing almost all my books, even my first book. Because when a good publisher sees the work, the good publisher knows it's good work. So we have all these books that people in Liberia, are proud of, who we're all proud of. But as I studied literature, I got to see the flaws in the poetry of some of the big names. I'm not going to call them. And I felt like this is why people are not studying these writers outside of Liberia. This is why we're not breaking through. So I wanted to know why we didn't have our own Wole Soyinka, why we didn't have our own Ngugi wa Thiong'o of Kenya, who just died. Why didn't we have our own Buchi Amechera? Why? Why should Nigerians and Ghanaians be the ones to write literature for Africa? And I noticed several things. One of them is Liberia doesn't care for artists and for writers. It's a country that is in this bubble of political schemes and rivalry and anger, fighting. So for some people in Liberia put me on one side of the political party, others put me on the other side. I don't have a political party. The only place I have a political party is in America. But I'm more independent than that, even. So they look at you and they connect you to all the other people who you family with, who are in some party. And so they hate you. But they don't realize that Liberian literature is at risk if we don't push it. So when I was growing up, I dreamed I would be the writer. If I would be the writer, people would know outside. I am not putting Barty Moore down. I'm not putting the fathers of our literature down. I'm not putting down the people who were writing in the 1800s. You know that. Let me get up and show you Breaking the Silence. Okay. This is Breaking the Silence. So as I began to write, and I was publishing all these books and being recognized around the world, and I started teaching young people in Liberia for more than 6 years, using my own money, raising support, and teaching them how to be great writers, how to follow after me. Because let me tell you, you are not a leader if nobody else is following you. There is no leader if nobody is following you. You are not a pioneer of a new vision if you don't have people who have been inspired by that vision. You don't have to have biological children, but you are not. And I'm a poet, so I speak in metaphors and symbols, in analogies. You are not a mother if you haven't adopted or given birth to or taken on other people's children as yours. You can talk all you want to talk and say your mother. So I wanted to let the world know that we did have poets. That we can put together a book. So for years I dreamed of that, but I needed the time. I remember people fighting and saying, if you can't write the anthology, I will write the anthology. And you know, when people say that, I say, go ahead. It's a big word. You can put out your anthology and I can put mine out too. People trying to compete, some people trying to put out anthology. A. Doris Banks Henrys was not a real Liberian. I don't even know she ever naturalized. She was married to Richard Henrys. But I saw her book, a little small book, and it was not representative of Liberia. It was full of celebration of William V.S. Todman and all his kingdom and all of that, but it was not real Liberian poetry in total. There were a few poets there in the book that were authentic, like H. Kirit Thomas. I don't even know if Betty Moore was in it. Okay? And so I decided I was going to, but I wanted to have a comprehensive. What comprehensive means the book from the beginning of time to now. So I wanted to put in the forefathers that people didn't know about. And I had one or two people, and I had the internet. So I proposed that in my sabbatical, I was going to go to Liberia and spend 5 months and do more research and put together this anthology. But I already had a battalion of at least 30 young people that I had mentored over the years who have poetry that is good. And those kids are writing still. Young people in their 20s and 30s in Monrovia, some of them now in grad school, some of them married, the young people that I mentor who helped me in my vision. So I had their poetry for emerging poets. So I set to work researching, and this book became a thing. This book begins with who the man they call founding father, Agwebli, Hilary Teach. The poem begins with Hilary Teach, Land of the Mighty Dead. This book is 300 and some pages. This book has the poets who were writing from 1800, before independence. Before independence. The fathers. Then they went to poets writing in the early 1900s, and poets writing in the 1960s, and poets writing in the 1980s, and poets writing today. And then emerging poets. So this is why. So now the interesting thing is, there are not many African countries where they've had many anthologies, but where they have all the Nigeria couldn't fit all of their poems, the major writers in one book. You know, they would probably put it in a 2,000-page book because it is Nigeria, okay? But they didn't have poets writing in 1800. So it is a book that has been respected around the world. It's desirable around the world because for the first time, we have a collection of authentic Liberian poetry. There are many poems that didn't make it in here. And so I said to myself, if I'm publishing all these books for myself, I need to bring my people together. And that's how. And with the support of my university, I had a year off. Unfortunately, my sabbatical year was COVID year. So I sat right at the same computer and sent for books from the Library of Congress, from everywhere, to be able to put poetry together. From Switzerland, University of Zurich, and with the help of great people like Elwood Dunn and other people, they will pass me things. I even found an anthology by Will what his name, Konakasu that we knew to be a playwright. I found his collection of poetry that he loaned or he left in Zurich for I don't know how many decades. The people had it in their archive. They sent it to me. It was not arranged. I helped organize the ones I wanted to arrange. And between him, his son, Small Kona, and him, and me, we got Kona Kasu in the book. As a writer writing a poet writing in the 60s. Nobody knew that Kona Kasu, my former professor, was, yeah.
Wow, okay. So that was the vision behind the project that you recently edited, Breaking the Silence, a groundbreaking anthology. So now that you have this, what role, because you just explained where Liberia was on the literary stage, but right now, what role does Liberia literary voice play in a broader African and global literary landscape? Can you assess? Give? Can you? Are you able to give an assessment?
Well, one of the things I know is that the people in the world know that Liberians can write.
Okay.
They may have known, but they know more. How do I know? Because there are book chapters written about my poetry by Nigerian scholars and Cameroonian scholars and Ghanaian scholars and other people in the world, European writers are doing reviews of my work, and all over America, there are book chapters on what I'm doing. And they attribute it to Liberia. When I first started and they began to write about me, I was in a database in England, and they classified me as a Nigerian. People said I couldn't be Liberian. I was either an American married to a Liberian, or I was Nigerian. I had a professor who's dead now, Dr. Robert H. Brown. He was a writer. He's one of my inspirations as a college student. He was publishing short stories in Liberia. He came from Maryland County. Robert Brown. He called me from England one day, angry. And I'm like, what happened, professor? And he said, why do they classify you as a Nigerian? And do they think we are too stupid to be great writers? And he's so mad. And the database they classified, I was a Nigerian. I was a Nigerian writer. And I said, what are you going to do about it? It's the Gale database. And they got you here and said, don't worry. They're going to reclassify me. So yes, we are impacting the literary scene. I'm not the only one. The young people after me are also publishing their work. The Africa Poetry Book Fund published one of our young people, Jeremy Taddy, I think they're publishing another young woman soon. And I'm fighting for them to publish more Liberians. I recommended a Liberian poet who got her PhD from the University of Puerto Rico, my mentee, and he said, and her book has been submitted. We are hoping that she will be accepted. So yes, but it's very clear from the amount of publicity I've got. And one of the things I did when I came to the United States, it took me 33 years before I became a citizen. And there were two reasons. One of the reasons is that my father wanted me to be a Liberian. Well, he was now dead since 2014. The other reason I wanted to remain a Liberian until I wanted to establish myself as a Liberian writer. I wanted the bios to reflect that I am Liberian, that Liberia may be a struggling country, but Liberia gave everything to me. And I saw people reviewing me in the 90s as an African American. And yes, I'm Black, but I'm not traditionally African American. My experience is different. I'm an African, and I see the world through an African lens.
Mm-hmm.
I see the world through the Black American lens. Yes, I write poetry about racism. I write poetry about being Black in America, but I am African. And when I look at my street and I'm writing a poem about my street, I'm using rhythms from my mother's language, from my father's rhythm. Okay. So I decided to be Liberian until 2023. 2023, I became a US citizen. Nobody can call me an American writer only without remembering my country. So we have made an impact, but it is not enough. It is not enough. One tree does not make a forest. One tree is not a forest. We need thousands of trees. We need dozens of Liberians who are writing literature that is published independent of self-publishing. We call it peer review. We can't be happy with self-publishing. We have to seek publishers who we do not pay to publish us, who correct all the errors and make sure our work is for the world. We are not writing for the globe. Like I was talking to you last night, when we speak on the computer like this, we are speaking for the world.
Yeah, yeah, Dr. Wesley, I could just look, I could listen to you all day and all the time again. Just quickly, not to go into the details, but I had to quit going to a particular gathering because the leader would not stop referring to me as a Nigerian. And I keep saying I'm a Liberian. It's just insulting that people think that, oh no, a Liberian cannot be like you must be Nigerian. No, Liberians, no, you cannot be a Liberian for you to be smart like this, for you to be brilliant like this. And I would try a few times respectfully to go to his office with no one around and say, I don't like that you say those things. I don't consider them a joke. I know it's just that because I've interacted with, I say it does not matter. But the last time he ever introduced me, I did a piece of work that he was impressed, and then he tried to introduce me to someone else, and then he introduced me as a Nigerian. I never went back. I never went back. So I mean, it just hurt me, and so I understand where you come from and how long it stayed. Because one why you stayed in America all these years and you were just being a US citizen. I saw the post and I was like, she just being a US citizen, but now I understand the story behind it. And I kept telling that person, I'm a Liberian. I like Nigerian. I like your achievement. But if you're content with what you've achieved, then be you. You don't have to be dragging other people to be Nigerians. I love being a Liberian. I'm a Liberian. That's my experience. That's who I am, and I like me. So yeah. Let me go to your head tie and deviate a little from the questions. When you
Can you give me a minute?
yeah, okay. All right, if you're just joining us, you are watching and then you're on the radio, you're listening to in Liberia because we're also live on the radio. You are listening to a noonday conversation on Focus on Liberia. At a noonday, we delve into transformative dialogues about social justice and the voices leading our charge for social reforms. So, yeah, at a noonday, we explore the intersections of politics, culture, and tradition with the leaders who are reshaping our world for the better. At a new day, we focus on critical dialogues around social justice with emphasis on gender justice to influence policy and contribute to societal shift. We have in studio with us today as our guest Dr. Patricia Jabbeh Wesley. She's a professor of English and creative writing at Penn State University um, in the United States. Dr. Wesley, you are back. I was asking you about your hair tie. When you came out and saw your hair tie, I love the way she can tie the way our mothers used to tie it. The really, which one is this? Is it the really gribble style or the like you?
Well, they call it choco. They grow up call it choco.
It's nice. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't feel that we should all dress like other cultures.
I agree.
We are authentically Liberian, and our women tie their hair. One time they would say a joke, and because we're running out of time, I can see. One time a woman in Monrovia in the 80s was upset that the taxi she got in could not contain her. It used to be bigger. It used to be big in the air. Mm-hmm. And when she got in the taxi, she kept saying to the man, push the thing up. And man say, I can push. You want me to push the ceiling of the taxi up? And she's upset. She upset that her hair tie couldn't fit in a taxi. When she sat down at the top, it was hitting the roof of the taxi. So the man said, maybe if you bought your own car,
maybe you can lift the ceiling.
Yeah, so our mothers, man, I had some strong mothers, and they knew how to put on clothes.
And that's where I'm going now.
Yeah.
For women voice and identity. So many of your poems speak boldly about womanhood, motherhood, and silence. And you mentioned that in passing a few times. How do you see your poetry engaging with gender and justice? And then what advice will you offer to African women who want to speak their truth but feel unheard or invisible?
We have to stand up to the culture. We have a patriarchal culture, but the culture has been watered down in the city culture. And I don't know, I can't speak particularly to the village culture today because it's been corrupted by city culture. Yeah. So whatever was in the village has been corrupted. But in our culture, women have their place and men have their place. I was in the Netherlands recently for the poetry festival, and before my big reading, they were interviewing me and wanted me to see the difference between African feminism and Western feminism. And when you say feminism, our men get scared. You understand? Feminism is womanism. Is our need for us to have the space that God has allotted us, or whatever divine being you believe in has given us as women. Women have their place and men have their place. I tell my students when I have a big desk to lift up, I say, help me lift the desk up. I tell the guys, and they look at me and say, I'm a feminist, but I don't believe that men should be around when I'm lifting up a heavy desk. Just because I want to be a strong woman doesn't mean I'm going to be carrying the steel rods when you are around, because you will not you will not cook that palm butter the way I cook it. So you better be able to do the other part that I can do. So we agree on that, you see. But to say that you will have a life in which I had a guy who said his wife was upset. He came home one day. He had bought the whole living room set. You got me? In America. He bought a whole living room set, leather furniture, everything. And he said to his wife, I'm changing the living room set. And he said the woman was angry. And he was talking to me. And I'm like, she has every right to be angry. I said, just because you make the money doesn't mean you don't consult with her. You people don't agree the kind of furniture she wants in her living room. He says, well, I'm the man. I'm like, that's where you got it wrong. So yes, we have our place where we are together, we work together. One of the things that happens, that has always happened, is that women should always step away, step aside. So men would be men and women would be nothing. And that culture, I encourage young people not to tolerate that culture. Especially our children. I teach my sons, they can learn how to cook too. They can learn how to cook. They should cook, and they cook. They should have a day when they are the one scrubbing the floor. In America, we don't have servants. Now, in Liberia, this is what happens. A woman wants to go to school, and people say, what do you want to go to school for? They still say that. What do you want to go to school for? You will have a husband. Who says every woman is going to have a husband? Who says so? Who says every woman needs a husband? Not every woman needs a husband. Not every woman needs a child. I'm stepping on toes here. Not every woman needs a child. And not every woman should stay in a marriage where it is abusive.
Unhealthy.
So I'm telling you, so these rights should be negotiable, and women should have their rights. One of the hardest things to do in Monrovia today is to mentor young women to excellence, because there are many drums being pounded around them. If you're a pretty little girl, the good news is some of us, when we're growing up, I was skinny like a bone. I was bookish. I was muffy. No big old man wanted me because my father was also tough. I remember when I was a junior in college, one of my former teachers, he's dead now. He was my tutor when I was a kid. My father brought him. And so he had an eye on me. So when he got his PhD, I was a junior in college. Imagine, from 6th grade, you were my tutor and high school teacher and all of that. So when he came from America, the first thing he did was to go to my father's office and say he wanted to marry me and I didn't have to finish college. You got me? And he was going to take care of me. My father didn't yell at him. My father said, okay, you know what I want you to do? I want you to meet with our family if you want to marry my daughter. And you want her to stop going to college, so you marry her, and so you will take care of her. Come to our house Saturday, so and so. So my father called a meeting of his children and his wife and me in a living room. So we're having meetings. Somebody's coming today. That man came with a coat suit. And he told my father, I come here. And he hadn't talked to me. He had been sexually harassing me. That is for sure. But he hadn't talked to me, say, I want to marry you. I'm on a university campus. And so he said, I want to marry your daughter. That's why I'm here today, to engage your daughter. I know she's smart, but she should stop going to school, because now I will take care of her. If she want car, I will buy it for her. If she want this and she want anything, I will take care of her. So after he finished making his speech, I'm sitting there. I am so mad. My father said, I don't want you to say anything, because I wanted to stop the man from talking nonsense. And then my father, when he finished, my father said, well, let me see. I keep wondering why there is the, anyway. So my father said, this man said he won't marry you. But I don't want you to say anything, because I know your mind. I know your mind, and he's older than you by far. This man was like 10 years older than me. So I don't want you to talk because that would be like you disrespecting somebody who's older than you. So my father said, thank you very much for explaining your stupidity. He said, you mean I will raise my daughter all this time, send her to college, a straight A student, with a future before her. And I will allow you to come and say now you have a PhD and you take care of my daughter. What happened? Are they not giving PhDs to women now? My father said, Marie, my daughter, that's my other name. Are you able to do a PhD one day? I said, yes. He said, I don't raise my daughters for them to marry a man that will take care of them. I raise my daughters so that they are educated enough and independent enough to take care of themselves. He said, so he says, I want you to leave my living room right now. And that's how my father said, get out of my living room.
You got a car key?
Yeah. So that was it. Get out of my living room. The next time I see you, even come near my daughter, I will have you arrested. She will get her own education and she will be educated enough so that if any man takes advantage of her, she will be the one to kick him out. So that's the kind of fathers and mothers I want. Today there are mothers in Monrovia who want their children to stop going to school. And no, we can build a country. In a country with more than 50% women, we cannot build a country to success when we suppress women's ambitions, when we stop our women from getting educated, and there are many ways in which women can stay and focus and can get the education they want and the independent. You don't all have to go to college, but you have to be independent. You have to do something. You can have a business. You can be a cosmopolitan. I know how to do hairdressing or whatever. You can be a beautician. You can do anything to be independent, to support the family. One of the fears in Liberia, when you have an intelligent woman or a woman who wants to be educated, and they're always afraid, and they used to say things like, "If I want to marry you, but you're too much, you're too strong for me." I said, "But I don't want to marry you." That's the first thing. Just because you want to marry me doesn't mean I want to marry you. So they as if to say it's a favor for them to marry you. When I was in college, some of the guys, I would like to marry you, but the way you eat, you're going to give me a hard time. So I'm like, it is not that I'm on the market. I'm in school. I'm not on the market looking for men. I don't want to marry you. I have somebody, if I want to marry him, I'll marry him. But I don't want you. But they always were afraid that when they marry you, you will be too bossy. So today now, I've been married 45 years. The last time I heard it, I was still married. Yeah, I was still married. And the thing about the intelligent woman, this is what happens. The two of them are educated and they are working together. So one day somebody is not working, but the other is working. You understand me? The woman steps in or the man steps in. You see that? So you don't come home and say, "Oh, I've been laid off." And then your wife starts popo will cry. No, she says, "Okay, if you lay off while you're on the job market, I am here." This is what you call it. And then an intelligent woman, when she finds out there is a problem in your marriage, her first thing is not to break up the marriage. You see that? Because she's thinking there are ways to solve this problem. There are ways to work. She's intelligent enough to to fight for that marriage, because that marriage has children who must be raised properly. She's not out there. Many intelligent women I know can be out there looking for somebody, but many women are looking for somebody because they need more financially from the man they got, and they can't get it, so they look outside. So you have to always aim for the best woman or man, okay? But women have their rights. You're not marrying a woman so she will be your servant or your slave, and you're not marrying a man so you will abuse him. Now, there are women who are abusing men. There are very many good men that marry the wrong women. So when we talk about feminism and women's rights, there are many men who need somebody to fight for them too. I don't want to be one-sided, because I know there are great men and great fathers who are struggling with terrible wives.
And thank you, and Dr. Wesley. And may I add also, you're not marrying a man so that he can be your provider. Like
No.
you don't, do you have disability? I'm honestly, I never got that logic. I mean, everybody do you. If you want a man to take care of you, it's just I've never got that. I need a man to take care of me. And then some of our friends just relax and let a man do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of financially now.
And then they don't want to be subservient. They want a man to do everything, the man to work hard and take care of them, and they want to talk blah 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 and cuss up the man. You understand me? If you have to be one thing or the other.
You want to be a child? You want to be a dependent among your children for him?
Yeah. And then they say, if you don't take care of me, I will go outside and find another man. But then go find another man. Go find another man. And then one of the things they have to know is the other man is not perfect, or the other woman is not perfect. But there are women today in America, Liberian women, who are taking care of their men, who are working 3 jobs.
Yeah,
to take care of a man, buy them clothes, dress them up, and then when a man cheats on them, they cry and they whine and they stay there.
Yeah, at one
You
point.
see? So that's the gender issue. I remember a man once insulting me in a home, I won't call the name, of his wife, insulting his wife. And when I tried to intervene, he began to insult me. He said, if I were married to you, you would not be up and down doing, say you're talking, doing research. I was on a research trip in New York, and he was blasting. And you wouldn't be, you're being a host cooking my food. Why she want me to eat a pamata she cooked yesterday? So I said, if you were married to me, you would have been long dead. You would have been dead long time. Luckily, you're not married to me. You're either going to get divorced the first month or dead. Luckily, you married to her. And I got in my car and was gone. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. But I want to read a poem.
That's what I want to say. Can you please read a poem?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm strong about and that makes me care about women. I was surrounded by strong women, but many of those strong women were dependent on men, including dependent on my father. Okay. And including my mother, depending on men, even when the man was not supportive. And I remember I was working on a book, and the first story says my first stepfather, my first stepfather, abandoned my mother when I was 7. My own father was not married to her because she had me when she was a kid, a girl, 16 years old in school. She got pregnant, dropped out of school. So she always thought she needed a man. The first man that brought us to Monrovia went to work in the diamond mines and never came back for 25 years. 25 years. He abandoned his wife that he had married in the village. He abandoned her. And he came back in 1988 when I already had my own children. I'm telling you, from 1964 or something to 88.
Where was he?
He was in the diamond mines. He went to work and he found other women and never came back. Never wrote one letter. So that's when I decided that I was going to get my own education. And if I fell on hard rock, I would be able to take care of myself. I come from a continent where women are told to shut up. I am a one-woman army through which children come like a sift. I breathe out words, and words become people, and people spit fire at buildings that are burning with hate. And hate begets dust, because after all, hate was never meant to give birth to life. I used to wonder as a child if my mother was the ocean, a woman who was the storehouse of life. I wondered if the men who came through her life like a flowing river could be turned to dust. As a child, I once thought I could kill my mother's lover. His angry eyes, big chest and feet, hands as rough as concrete. The sort of men from the 1960s who looked like they came from the war in Biafra, even though they'd never been anywhere. Men who looked like they were tossed onto ships to the Gold Coast in search of gold until they knew Ghana, to which they fled, hauled them onto ships back home to the same Africa Kwame Nkrumah died to save. I used to wonder if the 1960s was for real, because Monrovia was always on fire. Burning flames at midnight, matted houses, tarred roofs, shanty towns. A life of nothing with poor squatters who came to Monrovia to find life but quickly found death in the ghettos of Sonnywe, West Point, Bassa Community, Slipway. But on 26th day, William Totman and his men boasted of a country birthed out of the quest for freedom, when all the time it was slavery they were transplanting. I come from a continent where a woman is told to shut up, to let men be men, to bring forth babies, to cook and clean and rat in the backyards while their men roam dark nights, searching for lost mommy water they could go to bed with for one night. I was born in a country where a woman held on to a hot pot with one hand, and with the other held on to a man that was only a shadow of a man, where children were left behind by men who move on to other women the way you move on to a new neighborhood, until that neighborhood also was broken and spent like Bishop Brooks' Slipway, Jalatown, broken in pieces, like the way a child breaks her pencil into pieces. I wanted to take a man and put him in a mortar and with a pestle pound him and purify him the way you purify rice. But someone once told me that my father was also a man, broken, dust, and everything a man was not created to be. So I knelt at the altar and asked God to help me make a man into my image, to recreate the man God had made to build sons that will stray far from their roots and become real men the way a man was supposed to be. A man that could walk into a burning house and rescue his children and survive the flames and become the flames, healing the land.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. Thank you. A man made in my image. I heard that recently from my another my coach. She's like, I had to sit down for 7 years and pray for a man in my image manifest. And today she's been married for 15 years to that man. You're the second person I hear that from. That is powerful.
And you are a woman made in his image too.
Yeah.
That
Both,
means he will care for you the way he cares for himself.
yeah, both made in similar image. She said he's a male version of me, and
And
I'm
I'm
a female version of him. That's what she said. Yeah, during one of our coaching sessions. Yep. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So much wisdom. So much wisdom. I've been wanting to show off these books. I don't know what are they showing. One of
yeah, there
that
is something wrong with your, I think,
is the lighting. One of
yeah.
Dr. Wesley's books, Praise Song for My Children. Go and grab a copy. Go and grab a copy, Praise Song for My Children. And then I have another one. Yeah, it's a showing. This one is see when the wanderers come home. Then there's the other one where the road turns, and then I got a fourth one. So as we wrap up, let's go to I want you to address this. They say you were named poet laureate. Um you were named Liberia's first poet laureate. Should I say congratulations, or do you want to clarify where did that come from? And if so, what does this appointment mean to you personally and professionally?
I was never named anything. I was asked that question in the Netherlands because since I was the first laureate, they call it inauguration laureate, inaugural laureate.
Oh, okay.
And in another country, in the real world, in a place where the country cares about the art and cares about what I'm doing, if we had a country where the president, and I'm indicting all the presidents, including Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was giving dozens of my books, not only by me, but by others, they would have recognized me, including George Weah. They would have seen what I've done for the country. They didn't. I was invited by the inaugural committee for Joseph Boakai to write a poem and read it at the inauguration. I knew the importance. There were people who said, do not go because they don't care about us artists. Decline. The head of the committee was Miata Famule, who knows my work, who understands what I am doing, who herself is an artist, a major artist in Africa. She knew the importance. In America, when you have been a laureate at an inauguration, it's an important position. But not in my country, Liberia. Not in a country where you have to be a politician before people respect you, where you have to be a male politician for people to care about you. Not in my country, the oldest country of Africa, where I have written more volumes. The book that is coming up is only coming out. It's only from 1998 to 2020. It's not my life book. Such a book is published only when the author is dead. They call it collected works. That means all your work. But the collected works is already too much, 514 pages. So the press told me, we want to publish your collected works before the book gets too big for one book. So the next time they do a collected works, it might be from 2021 to the time I'm dead. You understand that? So I have done so much for Liberian literature. I went on the invitation, wrote the commission poem, flew to Liberia, no budget, took care of myself, went on that stage at the Capitol. They wasted hours playing so-called Christian music, talking, blah, blah, blah. And I got on the stage. And the first thing was when they called me up was for the big shot to go up, whoever the protocol person, and say, you only have 5 minutes. How many minutes does he think my poem was? I told him, you just try me. I started reading my poem. 3 times the MC, whoever she was. In our country, you either a big shot because you're a politician or you got boyfriend. That is a big shot. This woman comes to me and she tries to stab me 3 times. 3 times. With all the dignitaries behind her. Who does that to somebody of my caliber?
I saw that on YouTube, and I thought that was such a
And then
protocol.
the third time, I had only 3 lines left, and I just did it. This, leave me alone. I almost slapped her. Your own program, that's why you want to spoil? They wanted to stop me. I have read in China, in Europe. I've read in countries in Europe. I read my poetry on the most controversial stages, on difficult. I've read in South America with war going on in Colombia. I've read to thousands on one stage.
I saw that.
Nobody has been able to treat me like that. Yeah. I've read in the Library of Congress in Liberia. I've read at the Smithsonian in Liberia. In America, the Library of Congress in Liberia, the Smithsonian, the Poetry Foundation. I've read at dozens of first-class institutions, from Michigan to Ohio State to Texas A&M, Cornell, Penn State. And I'm on my own stage, and they try to stop me. I am not Poet Laureate of Liberia, but I deserve to be Poet Laureate of Liberia. But what do I need to do? When you are Poet Laureate, the government appoints you, and you have a strategic plan. I have spent years mentoring Liberian poets, working, teaching children how to write, inspiring them. I have done it. The only thing I haven't been is politician. And what I have done with my own money, the government is supposed to find that money and give me a budget to come and help Liberian literature flourish in Liberia. That's what a Poet Laureate does. So I told them, I'm not Poet Laureate. They started people call me Poet Laureate. Sometimes they put it on the web. I don't call myself Poet Laureate. I am a laureate. I know who I am. And I am humble at the same time, proud. When people told me not to go on that stage, you know what I said? I am going on that stage. I'm going to go on that stage because of Liberian women. I'm going to go on that stage because of the little children that I mentor, the young people in their 20s and 30s, so that tomorrow when they go on that stage, they know I've been there. I go on that stage to show artists who've been rejected that we are important. I go on that stage because of my father who had a dream. I go on the stage because of my mother who did not get a good education because she got pregnant with me and dropped out of school at 6th grade. I went on that stage for Liberia. I didn't go there for any one person. I didn't go there for the president. I went there as a Liberian, and I thank Miata family and her committee because she is a true Liberian artist.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wesley. I saw that. I thought it was so cool. I thought I was her. I don't know. I didn't, it was horrible. Like, what protocol person does that? Kept whispering behind you. She was telling the lady standing next to you to tell you, and the lady was just standing there because she knew she had to give you that deference. But there was one who came from the back in front of everyone else, and uh,
But she didn't know who she was dealing with. She was dealing with Patricia Jabbeh Wesley. I didn't get on our stage by sleeping with
had
a
happened.
politician. I didn't get on our stage by being the daughter of a politician. I went on our stage because my father brought me up right, and I got an education that Liberians deserve. That's why I was on our stage.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to be pushed off. And I got down when I was done. And whatever happened, I wasn't responsible, after that. Yeah. So, yeah. So,
what about in a country rebuilding itself? What do you see as the role of arts and artists in shaping national identity in a country like Liberia? Say you had all the budget. Say, for instance, yeah, hypothetically, you were the laureate, and then you had your office, you had a position. But what should you? What would be the convincing?
let
The
me tell you,
scenario
I,
like
I, I was invited by a famous festival called the International Poetry Festival of Medellin in Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia. They bring tens of thousands of people every year to that city, and it's saturate the entire country with poets. They fly you people across the country. They spread poetry. I saw how they use poetry to heal their nation that had been at war for over 40 years. Are you getting me? They
yeah.
had guerrilla warfare for 40 plus years and poetry. Little children, I will be reading to thousands, and you will hear little children screaming, Ti amo, Patricia, Ti amo, and people screaming. Even though I was reading English and the Spanish translator had not yet started translating, they saw the power of poetry. Poetry heals, art heals a nation.
Mm.
Art teaches our children to aspire, and art holds our history. Many of us learn history, the history of other countries through literature, through art, visual art, through music. We know how Nigerians think by the music they put out, by
Mm-hmm.
their poets. Art does that.
Okay.
Art is the ambassador of our nation. So if we had a lively literary movement instead of these little splinter groups that are fighting each other, these little groups fighting each other, self-publishing, if we had a viable body of literature, we don't have a literary tradition. We
Mm.
don't. We're just now beginning a literary tradition. That means generation after generation, we are getting major poets and major fiction writers, major writers that carry on the torch to another generation, to another generation. If we had some of the youth in the streets will be writing and singing and doing music, but the country has to have a, a movement or an organization that has a budget to help support these young artists, these young writers. It will inspire our young people to act excellence.
Okay.
You see, so yes, so
It-
that would be it. And
uh,
you don't have to be living in a country. Kwame Dawes was appointed as Jamaica's poet laureate. He lives in the United States.
good.
Pilot and
Good.
spent some time in Jamaica. Yes.
Exactly. That's my next question. Like, as someone writing now, as someone writing from the US but rooted in Liberia, how do you navigate belonging in two worlds? And then the next one is, do you feel poetry helps bridge the gap between the homeland and the diaspora?
Okay. How do I navigate? I always advise young people or writers. We cannot write about Africa in isolation. I
Okay.
mean, even in anything, There are people in America who are all day talking politics, talking Liberian politics on YouTube, on Facebook Live. They haven't been home for 40 years. They haven't been to Liberia. They don't even know Liberia. They just talk. You have to go home. You have to go home almost every year. Because Liberia is changing. Every day Liberia is changing. Liberia is different than the Liberia you knew. You wouldn't be able to find your own house, own place when you went home.
Say that again.
Okay? So you have to go home. The way I negotiate, I don't want to go to Monrovia every year. I go to Cape Palmas. Some of the poems in the newer part of praise songs, because after I've written in America for over 2 decades, I was becoming more and more westernized in my style and rhythm. I went back home and I decided I was thinking to do a road trip. I went from Monrovia to Harper. And then I saw the beauty of our landscape, the beauty of our people. I got to Pele country. I got down. I interacted a little bit. And then I got to Gio country. I got down and got to see the culture. Then I went and we drove forever into Grand Jide. And then I saw Grand Jide. I saw the culture. I saw the people. I saw the landscape, the beauty of our homeland. And then I went in the last town before you enter Grand Cru. We got down, my nieces and the drivers that took us, we got down, and the paramount chief was sitting at a shop door that I wanted to buy drinks from. I went there, he started speaking Crown to me. I could understand everything he was saying, even though he was speaking Crown. You see, our languages have so many dozens of dialects, each of them. And as the landscape changes from town to town, the language changes. The language changes. Now we were at the border, I think it was Jebo town or some kind of town, next to the first Grand Cru town at the borderline.
I think it's Jebo.
Eh?
I think it
was Crown.
Okay.
But it was Crown that was so close to Gribble.
Okay.
So when he started speaking, I understood everything he was saying. I started speaking my Gribble to him. He got excited. The chief got excited. He could understand me. I saw him screaming and say, "Book woman," because I was looking Western and dressed up in my, and he said, "Book woman, America woman." He was speaking Gribble. He was speaking Crown. American woman can speak Gribble. And I was speaking Gribble. And he could understand my Gribble. So through that landscape, my entire voice returned to what my first book was. That influence, you navigate by going back to your people, by staying with them, by being with them. When I go, I get out of my fence. I go to the shop in the neighborhood next to me, my neighbors. I sit there and I buy everybody a drink and they put on music and I start dancing. We all dance together and they're screaming because I'm dancing with them. One time somebody tried to stream me on Facebook. I told him, "I will kill you if you did that." So he didn't. I was joking him and he didn't. But, you mingle with our people. Our people are our people.
So you go, you find out
them. Yeah. You go, I go all over. I go to Point 4. I went to Slipway the last time I was there. I spent some years in Slipway. You mingle with your people. So then you come back. All that material is in your head. And then you write about your people. And then you can mingle with your people in America too, And so that's how I keep my voice as a Liberian. The young people in Monrovia, this is what I also teach them. They are in Monrovia, but that's not all Liberia. So I tell them to go to their home counties. Go visit your people. Go to Lofa. Write about the Wologisi Mountain. Write about Lake Piso. Stop writing about other places. So, and the kids started writing about their places. And one girl wrote a poem about Mount Utuvi. Look at me. Who say I got PhD? So I said, what do you mean by Mount Utuvi? She said, Ade, that's the other name for Wologisi.
Nice. All right. So, for your closing reflection as we wrap up, what do you hope readers of your work carry with them long after they've closed your book? And then, if this generation of Liberians and Africans were to write their own history, what should they never forget?
Well, you never forget who you are. And African literature is influenced by our oral tradition. Our oral tradition. You never forget who you are. You should never. And our oral tradition, who we are. You know, just if you just went through the way your grandmother sang your praise songs, for me, they will start with Jabecho Chidadaro Kwe, Jaberate, Jiraje, Dear Baju. They were, you know, so our culture is a poetic culture, it's a literary culture. So that is what people should be rooted in. But when people read my book, I want them, I write in a way that they do not forget many of the lines, literary, poetic lines. Even people who don't like me, somebody quoted a poem, part of my poem that is not published, that I read to you. He quoted lines of my poem. And he was angry with me. But when I heard it, I was proud. I said, if you can remember lines of my poem, I have succeeded. Because you do not remember lines of a terrible poet's poem. Lines follow you when they are powerful, even when they make you angry. Can you imagine somebody quoting, I wanted to take a man and put him in the mortar and pestle him the way we pound the right, and purify him the way we pestle rights. I'm like, that poem is not in any book. It's unpublished. And he remembered. So I thank God. So that's what I want people to remember. To remember one or two things, that my voice is unique, but it's Liberian, it's African. Whether when I'm writing about my American experience, I want them to remember the voice. The voice is what I bring into the poem. And most times, people remember that. People remember that. And I will encourage young people who want to write to hold on to their voice. As we become global citizens, as we travel the globe, we still are African. We come from a great place. Despite wars and all the terrible things they say about us, and some of the criticism I have in my own work, we are a great people. We are Liberians.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Do you have a last poem that you wanted to share? As we hitting 2 hours now.
Yeah, since they gave us extra time, isn't that so? I have a poem that I wanted to read, but it's so sad, so I'm going to read something. And I'm going to read something that is not feminist and that is not about war.
Okay. Happy ending.
Yeah, I want to read something funny.
Oh,
and different, you know. Okay. So we are all social media people. So I'm going to read something that will appeal to not just our people. It's called Poem Written from Failed Chat Notes. It's about
I saw that.
failed chat notes. Okay. And, you know, about people try to contact me from around the world, you know, and they call me Mama sometimes. Poem written from failed chat notes. Hi, PJ, someone writes. The PJ calmer than the owner of the name. I love to see my initials so free of all the cares of earthly possessions. Looking for job, another writes. Just like that, looking for job. The message is flat like a pen. No, like a flat board where the cutting of potatoes further flattens the map where the job may be found. Hello, they echo clearly discernible through the pressing of keys. This time, a woman out there in Southeast Asia. Hello, she says, as if words were sufficient in themselves to return to us filled with air bubbles like a balloon. Hello, madame, one man says like a sigh, carrying the silence that only the word madame can leave behind. I check him out, and his hair combed back as if after shower. Somewhere in India, it is hot now. How are you today? Another adds, as if to complete the sentence others have left hanging on the tiny lines of these long distance greetings, like glitter on the page of a phone. Hi, how were you? Another interjects as quickly as that came. Here comes another incorrection of grammar, I guess. How are you today? So I think we should all agree that the proper spelling of YOU has to be you. But before I linger too long on whether you is better than YOU, here comes another, more elaborate, a lecture on the art of caring, something I needed to hear today. But when I do respond, another comes in, maybe to take back his long discourse. He says simply and calmly, hello. I love the word better. Hello, at least. I can write a poem with that. Hello, hello. Imagine a poem with 100 hellos all over the page, 150 hellos. When the next greeting stops at something like, hello, big sis, I step away from the computer to check my weight. For a moment, I think he means big, fat, overweight, large. What can I say to another brother of mine far across the ocean somewhere? I love Facebook's ability to tie us through air and space by hanging strings and names. After a while, I'm tired of reading all across the message inbox are fragments of disconnected thoughts unending, the fracturing of thoughts by people who could be otherwise fractured. So, like pieces of jumbled up thoughts, I read on. Patricia, hi, ma'am. Hey, hello, ma'am. Good morning. Hey, what's up? Oh, ma'am, what's up? In between the carefully incompleteness of language. Are those are, are those whose stories no one will tell. I wish I knew the next sentence, the twisting of a finger on a small keyboard just to scribble a single word. Someday there will be strings of words strung together so another can complete the thoughts of another. I love you all, I say to myself, but most of all, I love the incompleteness with which you complete the things you cannot say. Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you for joining us today. I love the ending.
The incompleteness of the way you complete or whatever.
All right. So, any last farewell comments?
Well, thank you very much, Priscilla, Miss Yananto, my own Priscilla Marbello. I like Yananto.
Okay.
This is a powerful name, okay?
Yeah.
And thank you to Focus on Liberia and to Dennis, my student at Morovia College, who was one of the best of the troublemakers. And I'm proud of you all. And thank you to those who join us and those who will listen. And I pray for our country and for the world. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored and humbled by the fact that you spend 2 hours of your day today. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wesley.
Thank you.
Thank you, our viewers, Jackson, Boy, Clay, Slavian. Thank you for staying on. Theodosia Hart, thank you. I can't read all of your comments, but just to mention, Lady May, Manon, thank you. Julia Casser, thank you. Oben Dolo, thank you, thank you, thank you. She say, is it she or he? Say, well done. Let's tell our stories, Julia Casser. So yeah, thank you for staying with us. As we wrap up for the day, remember on a new day we say change begins with a conversation. That's why we are having this conversation. So let's continue the dialogue, elevate our voices, and actively participate in shaping a world where social justice isn't only an aspiration but a reality. Join us next time on the Noonday Conversations as we continue to explore and advocate for social reform. Let's make every day a new day for progress. Thank you again, Dr. Wesley, for joining us. And thank you, audience. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you for being a change and for sharing your day with us. It's a new day, everyone. It's a new day. Take care.
Yeah.
All right.